Guten Morgen from a very wet Nurburgring. It was a very heavy rain in the race. That's the best I can do, like a German parody. Yeah. Hi everyone. Today we're gonna review how realistic the wet weather is in the game compared to real life. We just finished our round 4 of Scorpio Super Formula, and the beginning was very wet. It was actually the highest rain setting. As you can see, I'm still haven't dried. So yeah, it was a very interesting race. And first, I'm gonna start with giving you a little explanation of why I chose the wet weather for this event, and especially transition from wet to dry. First of all, when I started racing in 2009, uh, my coach always told me that I need to drive on slicks in the wet. And actually, my first karting testing was over the Christmas holidays. So I actually drove on slicks not only in the rain but also in the snow. So I'm very used to driving in the difficult conditions. My first two podiums came in Formula Renault in Winter Series when it was pouring down with rain. It was 37 or 39 cars on the grid. I finished third in both races in my class. Uh, then my first win came also in a wet race, also in Snetterton, when it started raining mid-race, and most of the drivers switched to wets, but I stayed out on slicks, and we won. That was also my first win with Scorpio. So yeah, racing in the rain is exciting, but we're gonna go through certain things that I think, yeah, are worth discussing, especially how realistic driving in the wet weather is in the game compared to real life, and how you need to alter the setup, how you need to alter your driving style and the strategy when it rains. And as a bonus for everyone who watches it to the end, I will show you the onboard from my helmet camera from one of my first test days in Silverstone in Formula Renault when it was also wet. I think like my first 5 test days were wet. I think the first, like when we came to the first race in Formula Renault in 2011, it was actually my first time on a track in a dry. So I'm quite experienced driving in the wet. Okay, so first major difference is not the lines, as everyone says, but it's an approach. It's the mental approach to the race. Because when it is dry, every driver knows exactly what to expect. There are minor differences like the temperature and wind, but they are very minor compared to what happens when the circuit is wet. So the mental approach is the most important thing when it comes to the rainy weather driving, because you never know what's going to happen. Not only like in 10 minutes, but you don't know what's going to happen in the next corner, and that's the most challenging part, right? So when I announced that it will be a wet start with heavy rain, I'm not going to call names, but some of the front runners actually complained a lot, like, and they asked other admins to talk to me about changing the weather, and I actually quite enjoyed it because it means that it's something challenging for the drivers. So uh, the most difficult thing is to drive in the first position, because you have no references. You don't know where other people brake. You don't know how fast other people are in the apex. So when it comes to the wet weather racing, the most challenging position to be in is P1, because you have no references. You don't know what's coming. And when I talked about the mental approach, is actually the winner in the wet weather racing is someone who minimizes underdriving. And that being said, like, you basically, because you don't know how much grip you're going to have in the next corner, you have to drive very cautiously. But if you drive too cautiously, you are too slow. So there is that fine balance between pushing hard and making a mistake, and taking it back slightly but not being too slow. And those things we're going to see now actually in the start of the race. And just before we go through this race, I want to remind you again and to all the new viewers as well, that this lobby, all of these drivers in this lobby are the top 100 in the world. Even those who lose one lap in the end of the race, they're still very, very high class drivers. And we had a strict qualifying procedure before the season, so we actually take only the best drivers. And what you see here is a master class. It's not some amateur racing, though everyone who takes part here is a very, very fast driver and a very professional driver. So let's start. Pole position, we have Drift King. It's actually his first pole position and the first time Super S2K is not on pole. Let's see. And a good start. Good start by Nico as well. Good start by Super S2K, who actually passes Nico straight away. And he tries to attack on the outside. Everything looks good. And this is the moment when it goes wrong for both AMS drivers. So at this point, I think uh, Ryan is being passed by his teammate, having started from pole, and because he was relatively unhappy with the wet weather, I think maybe in the back of his mind he was approaching this race with some sort of mentality that something is not right, and that's going to show now. Also, what distracts him here is that his teammate actually passed him, having started from P3. So uh, I remember it's happening to me in real life as well, when suddenly nothing goes your way and you start sort of being nervous. I don't know if it happened to Ryan or not, but I think that might have been the reason. So if we look here, he starts P1, he has a nice launch, he blocks off Nico, and then suddenly he has his teammate on the outside. And if I was him, I would be like, damn, it's not going my way. I'm not very happy with how it goes. He's actually being very careful, and at this moment, Super STK makes a mistake. So at this moment, Ryan would be like, "Woohoo! Yeah, I'm back in P1. I'm so happy now." Oops. This is just being overly optimistic and, in my opinion, overly emotional. What happens here is that he just can't turn in because Philo and Sanchez are on his inside. So that's what I was saying about the mental approach, right? You have to know your lines, you have to know your ability, and regardless of what happens around you, you have to stick true to yourself and just know what you can do. If you are not sure, back off. I mean, otherwise things like this happen. Both for Super S2K and Chung. It's just S2K was slightly more fortunate with his Twitch because he had no one on his inside, so he could easily come back, whereas Ryan couldn't. In my opinion, it's two same mistakes. Just in case of Ryan, it's a bit more consequences. And here he returns in track. He's now behind Roach as well, and Gramenas is going to get past him as well. So uh, this is just mental approach in my personal opinion. All right, now let's have a look at the lines. Because lines is what everyone is talking about, and the lines is always something that's being discussed when it comes to wet weather racing, and especially in one of the recent updates, I think in Gran Turismo, it was said that the game mechanics will better replicate the wet weather lines. However, uh, it's not always true, and I'm going to explain to you why. So if we look at Super S2K, who was exemplary the whole race, both in wet weather and on dry, let's look at his lines. Uh, Normally, what people say is that you have to drive on the outside of the corner. So you sort of take a long route through the corner. And the reason for this is that you avoid a line with tire marbles. Because the tarmac itself, it's like if you zoom in a lot on the tarmac surface, you will see a lot of little spikes, and that what makes the tire grip. So it looks very flat, but if you zoom in very very closely, you will see little spikes, and that's what makes the tire grip. In the dry, you can see the black line, like the trajectory through the corners. and it's darker than the rest of the tarmac because of the tire particles that are being torn because of these little spikes, and they make this surface smoother. So they sort of even out these indifferences in tarmac surface, and it makes it smoother. When it's dry, it's better because those tire particles, they make the surface smoother and more grippier because the tire grips better to the tire particles rather than tarmac itself. And that's also what is called track evolution. So the more, especially it's relevant on city tracks. So when you have the first practice session, everyone says the circuit is green. It's green because there are no tire particles in the tarmac um, mini bumps, so to speak. As the weekend goes on, more and more tire particles are on the racing line, and it's good for the dry. But when it becomes wet, it becomes like ice. So the tire has nothing to grip onto. This tire rubber, like the rubber level on the racing line, when it becomes wet, it becomes extremely slippery. So it becomes like driving on ice. And the only reason for drivers to go on the outside of the corner is to avoid driving on those tire particles on the tarmac. So you try to find more grip on the outside of the corner, even though it's longer and it's more distance, but you can carry more speed because your tires will grip better on the outside of the corner. That's the general rule. However, there are various corners where if you're able to straighten the wheel mid-corner, it would be still faster to go on the normal racing line as in a dry. Basically, what I mean is, if you have a very smooth corner and you are able to rotate the car more than you need on the entry, you can then drive through this corner without turning the wheel. So you will just straighten it, and because you don't have to turn the wheel, you can still carry a lot of speed and you can go over those tire marbles. And that's what we will see here with Super S2K. I'm not sure if he had this reasoning or it was just his feeling, but he was exactly right in what he was doing. So let's have a look. This corner, he almost goes there. Here he actually drives the conventional racing line and has a twitch, which is okay. Now he's gonna sort of drive on the middle of the track, and here in the middle of the track as well. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to find the right balance. If people tell you that you need to drive on the outside, it doesn't mean that you have to drive along the outside white line. You just have to avoid, when you can, those tire marbles on the track. And there is no general rule. There is no like a formula for driving in the wet. You just have to feel it. Uh, Now let's talk about how different it is from actual real life. Uh, the first major difference is the setup. Because from what I noticed in Gran Turismo, a lot of drivers just use their normal setup in the wet and it works. I'll ask around other drivers, but I very much doubt that anyone had a special wet setup for this race. First of all, is because everyone knew that the rain will finish in like 10 laps. And secondly, it's very complicated to set up the car for the wet in real life. Uh, and if you try to drive in heavy wet weather on heavy wet tires with your drive setup, you will be maybe around 5 seconds a lap slower, something like this. It relates to Formula One, it relates to pretty much all single seaters, less so for touring cars and GTs because they're generally a lot softer. But when we talk about very stiff cars, and that being open wheel and prototypes, it's night and day. The teams have special setups for the wet, and that is like what is not replicated in the game. Uh, what is the difference? The difference is number one, suspension stiffness. In a wet, you would normally go as soft as possible on your suspension and roll bars. General rule here in the game is that you use the stiffest roll bars you can, so it's almost 10 out of 10 stiffness on both axles generally. I know some drivers like to tweak it, but no one really runs it on one. I tried it during testing, and if you actually replicate the real life wet setup in the game, it's not working here. So, what is definitely unlike in real life is the setup. Uh, it's just it's not like in real life. Let's just put it this way. If you tried doing this in a very heavy rain with your dry setup, you would be, I don't know, 3 to 5 seconds slower a lap. However, in this instance, everyone would still do that because, as I said, they knew that the rain will finish in around lap 10. Uh, so yeah, general rule in real life, wet weather, make the car as soft as possible. Also roll bars. The reason is you want, unlike in the dry weather, you want your car to roll, like sort of lean on the outside of the tire more. So when you soften up the roll bars, it obviously you will not see it with an open wheel. But if you imagine a road car, when it turns, it sort of goes like this. And if you turn left, it goes like this. So it leans on the outside tire a lot more. And that's what you want when it comes to wet weather racing, because the inside tire will not have any grip anyway. So you want to load the outside as much as possible to have more weight on it to actually grip better. So you want to sort of push your tire into the tarmac to grip better, if you understand what I mean. The same goes for the braking. You want your car to lunge forward on the brakes. That's why you need soft suspension. Same goes for acceleration. You want your car to sort of lift the front and transfer all the weight onto the rear wheels. Again, to push them in, to have more grip. Because all the setup, or like all the car setup in the wet, is built around getting more grip on the loaded tire. Front tires on the brakes, rear tires on the acceleration, left-hand tires while turning right, and right-hand tires while turning left. I hope it explains why you want the car as soft as possible in the wet, and absolutely opposite in the dry. So I think we have it covered now. Now let's talk about the changing conditions and why some drivers failed, and I think no one has failed as much as Nico in this race. And I was extremely surprised with what happened to Nico because, in my opinion, he's one of the top three drivers in this championship, world finalist on many occasions, won various World Series, and generally in the first 3 rounds, I was extremely impressed with him. And what happened in Nurburgring, I hope it was the last time it happened to him because he needs to sort of digest what was going on and try not to repeat it later. Now we're going to go through something called adaptability, or in this instance, inadaptability. This is extremely important thing in real life, something that's neglected by sim racers simply because in sim racing the conditions are almost the same all the time. And in testing, you can actually set it as equal conditions and drive 200 laps, finding your perfect setup in exactly the same conditions. So I think when a driver changes from sim racing to real car, the most difficult part would be here, the brain, because you are not used to being as adaptable as anyone who started in real cars. And that's what we're seeing here. So the track is drying up. Let's go to roughly lap 10. You can see the dry line is starting to appear. Then in lap 11, most people will pit. So I'm actually pitted on lap 10 and gained like 4 or 5 seconds by doing this undercut. I think the first one to pit was Adam, and his decision was fantastic. It's just a shame that he was in the last place at the time. But it was very risky. But generally, those driving at the back would tend to risk more, obviously. Actually, Super S2K pitted, I think, like 2 laps later than everyone else, which was a perfectly right thing to do in his occasion. He is the race leader with a pretty solid gap. Why risk? It's better to wait to make sure that the track is dry enough and then make a switch to slicks. All right, so by this time, Nico is still P3, which is okay. Okay, now P4. But anyway, um, I think all of these drivers will pit now, and I pitted in lap 11 also. Yeah, so Ryan pits. No, they actually waited more, so they played it safe. Okay, lap 12. Yeah, they did it on lap 12, and then they started making mistakes. Nico started making mistakes, so he comes back onto the dry track. Yeah, so he comes back onto the track, lap 13. He sort of takes it easy for the first couple of laps, but then he realizes that he is P5 and he needs to push more. Also, Gramenas and Sanchez are ahead of him. Gramenas also pitted one of the first, so he had a massive undercut. I think he was like P7 and then re-emerged P3 because of his brave move to switch to slicks a lot earlier. Now, we're gonna go to lap 15 and Nico is behind Philo already. So, yeah, this is the first mistake. Spin and damage. Why? I'm gonna show you now. First of all, you wouldn't drive with one side of the car on the wet in the slicks on a dry track because you don't need to cool them down. Generally, in conditions like this, the tires would be cold and you will struggle to get the heat into them. So you wouldn't try to cool them down on the wet patches of the track when it slicks. So that was the mistake already. I don't know what it does in a game, but in real life you wouldn't do that. And the problem is here. So he misses the apex, possibly because his brain didn't switch to dry line racing from the wet. So in the wet you would do it this way, but it's dry. It's almost dry now, so you need to be on the apex, and it's nothing major about hitting the curb with your inside wheels because your inside of the car is unloaded. So you have a lot more grip on the outside. So the most important thing here is to not touch a wet patch of the track or white line or the curb with your outside wheels. And you will see now why. Because your outside wheels are loaded. And that's what happens here. Here we go. Slightly hitting the damp patch and spins. Now he then obviously gonna pit. I'm not gonna go through every spin of Nico because that would be just humiliating. But I think I'm not trying to humiliate Nico here. Obviously not. I still think that he's one of the best drivers on the grid, if not the best. I'm just trying to show you the importance of adaptability on his example because he was the one who struggled the most. But it's not to say that Nico is a bad driver. As I said, he's the world finalist, multiple world champion in various series. I have huge respect for him. And after all, even after all his shenanigans, he still finished in front of me. So I have no right to laugh at someone, only myself. But yeah, it's not to humiliate Nico, it's just to show an example. So let's just skip forward to lap 27. Yeah, he's gonna get past me here, so that's my battle with Nico. And that's what I was saying. I might not understand fully how the game works, but if you look at the line difference, again, maybe in the game what I'm doing is slower, but I'm gonna make a separate video of how my brain works when I try to do sim racing. But if you look here at our lines, that's what I said earlier. Look where I am. I'm almost hitting the white line, whereas Nico is like half a meter off. In life, you would lose like 3/10 here by doing this, but I don't know why in the game it's different. But anyway, it's not a point of discussion now. So He makes a very good move on me here. Very nice switchback. And then you see also here the difference. So I know that on the outside of the track, and especially on the AstroTurf where Nico is, it would be very, very wet still. So the tarmac dries out a lot quicker than the painted lines, AstroTurf, or the grass. So as a general rule, any driver would avoid going outside of the track or hitting the curbs on exits, even when the circuit has dried up, because the curbs and the lines and the astro will still be damp. If he did that in real life, he would have spun. And that's generally his problem during the race. As soon as he switched on slicks on lap 13, he started treating the circuit and everything that surrounded the circuit as if it was fully dry, which is not the case. In the game, it's way more forgiving than in real life. Because as I said, like if he did this in real life, he would have ended up in the opposite wall. That's why I'm not going there, and that's my mistake in sim racing. My brain still works as if I was in real life. I don't adapt to how it is in real life. You see here as well, another corner. I was barely touching the outside curb. Nico went to the painted concrete. Anyway, then on lap 32, after a few nice passes, he's gonna do something really weird. Why is it not switching? Just a second here. Yeah, so he's P6 now on pretty warm mediums. By this point, it's okay to go outside because you can see the sun is shining and most likely the lines and the curbs would have dried up by this time already. Yeah, so he is overly aggressive on power here, but he survives, so it's okay. For some reason, doesn't cut the first apex, and now, as I said, the game is way more forgiving than real life. So for some reason, he goes way too wide. I don't know if I don't think that in a game by this point that part of the track was wet, but yeah, you can see the water meter is at zero. But why would you go there? Like in real life, this wouldn't have dried up in 20 laps, so this would have been wet. And what he managed to do here to catch the car, he wouldn't have done that because he got onto the opposite side of the track, slightly hit the grass, which would have been still wet, and probably went onto the left again. So that's what I'm talking about adaptability. You have to find those fine margins between pushing too hard and underdriving. There is very, very fine balance. Right, so then he manages to drive a couple of laps without any mistakes, climbs back to P7, then lap 36 is another mistake. In all fairness, I don't understand like why would drivers why would drivers be doing something like this? Yeah, he actually spins again. So another same mistake. Chasing Gramenos, probably angry with himself, slightly too eager on power. Boom. Excuse me. So another damage. Lap 36. I actually did the same on lap 39. So as I said, I'm no better here. Uh, so Nico pitted. He was behind me. Then we start lap 39, and I did exactly the same mistake. Hitting the apex nicely, slightly too eager on power. I reacted slightly better, so I managed not to hit the wall, but I lost 2 or 3 positions here. So yeah, uh, yeah. So I think we covered the adaptability here. Once again, I want to emphasize that in no way I'm trying to denounce Nico here. It was just a good example to show for the future for all the drivers, really, because we will have more wet races. So to summarize this, the final verdict is Driving in the wet in the game, I would say 50% realistic. Setup, 0% realistic. Adaptability, 100% realistic. Um, that's the verdict on wet weather. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to find any photos from my Snetterton races when it was pouring down with rain and we had 37 or 39 cars on the grid. Genuinely, I swear, genuinely, I was driving on a straight from this, like as soon as we started the race, I was driving completely blind, as was pretty much everyone from P5 backwards. You couldn't see not only the corner, not only other cars, you couldn't see white lines on a straight, on a pit straight. Literally blind. And what everyone was doing really, because I looked at my teammates' data and we were discussing it with other drivers. As soon as we started the race, we were driving literally 50% throttle. We turned in into the first corner with muscle memory. You couldn't see. So you sort of roughly knew that the first corner is somewhere here, so we would start turning. We deliberately let each other further apart straight away, just not to crash, because we knew that we just had to survive the first couple of laps and let this field spread. Because there would be mistakes, there would be DNFs, and you just had to let the others go. That's counterintuitive, but that's the major difference with the game. No matter how heavy the rain is, I mean, let's go back to the start of the race. Let's go back. Let's go on board with the last place car, which was Supa. Uh, from his camera, you will see that you can see everything very, very well. There is no issue with visibility whatsoever. So he's P14. The race starts. There is a little spray, but you can see the first place here, like which is like 50 meters ahead at least, and it's not getting any worse. Like you can see very clearly, you can see the trees, you can see other cars, curbs, the line, no problem. In real life, with the rain as heavy as this, you would see nothing. You literally would see nothing. So that's another thing to think about. The visibility in the game is perfect compared to what you normally experience in real life. And also bear in mind, when you watch the onboards, for example, from Formula One, the camera shows you much better picture than you see with your eyes. Because the camera, it usually has like like the spray, like which makes the water go. Uh, Also the camera itself, it focuses better on a variety of things, so you can see more clearly with your eyes when you drive with the visor on. uh, First of all, you will have the fog on the inside of the visor, so you have to slightly open it. Then you will start having the raindrops getting inside into your eyes. Yeah, obviously, like the Formula One helmets, they have the ventilation and everything, but I'm talking here about the beginner series, like Formula 4, karting. In karting, we always drove with slightly open visors, and it would be normal to have wet here, under your eyes. I mean, no one has money to buy a helmet like in Formula One, which costs like $10,000. You would buy entry level helmets, and the ventilation there is not very good. The visors get foggy. Uh, and your eyes, like human eyes, they don't focus as well as the cameras, so the visibility is close to zero. Anyway, if you want me to go through more real life experiences compared to the game, that was sort of an experiment from my side. If you are interested in more comparisons, let me know in the comments, and we will do something. uh, Give me the topics to discuss, and we will discuss. Let's see what happened in lap 55, because that was a request from one of the drivers to actually go through it. It was a lap car, and on the stream, the commentators said that one of the cars were impeded. Yeah, it's actually here. So it was Michael. Let's start here. He has blue flags. The blue flags are a bitch here in this game because they start showing you while the chasing cars are like 3 corners behind. So it's, I mean, the way the blue flags work in the game is just stupid. So that also what distracts the drivers. You don't really know when you actually have to let the other cars through because you start getting blue flags like 30 seconds before you actually have to do it. And I think that, I mean, here at this point, Michael is actually pretty close to the 2 cars chasing him. So in all fairness, I mean, I haven't seen this incident before, so I'm just discussing as I see it. Uh, at this point, I would say you already have to move over and let the 2 cars by, especially when it's the fight between the 2 cars. So, uh, yeah, I would say like if we go to Driftkin, who's actually the chasing car, he's pretty close to Michael. So at this point, I would say Michael has to move over to the inside and let them through before the turn one. Because that's like 10 car lengths. That's not a lot. He doesn't do it. Okay. So here it's already impeding actually because the chasing car is very close. It starts driving in dirty air. Um it is also very distracting for the chasing car. As I said, I would have moved over on the pit straight. However, there is no direct impeding, but it's on the edge, I would say. So yeah, Drifkin makes a mistake here, and here this is impeding. He cannot take the racing line, so Michael went onto the outside. It looked like he was letting him by because he didn't hit the apex. Look in turn two. Let's see now. Yeah, so he goes very, very wide here. It looks like he's letting him by. I have no idea why Ryan is not going to the apex. I think he was distracted with Michael here. But here it looks like Michael has committed to let Ryan by. However, for some reason here, Ryan is actually almost hitting him because I don't know. It's all very dodgy here. It would have been avoided if Michael just let them by on the main straight. Um, I don't know why it was necessary, really. I think definitely it's not the way it should have been. Then we move to Sanchez, who's chasing Ryan. He's trying to get onto the inside. Again, it looks like Michael is actually letting them by because he's not going to the apex. Sanchez is trying to pass him, and suddenly Michael is blocking the apex again. Yeah, he lets by eventually, but you can see the gap between Ryan and Sanchez is way more than it was before. So unfortunately, on the replay, you can't see the gaps, but I think on the stream they said like Sanchez lost around 4 tenths. I wouldn't say it was dirty driving from Michael. I wouldn't say it was intentional, but it was definitely impeding. We will not consider any penalties because this incident was not reported, and in my opinion, I doubt it would have been penalized in real life. So I wouldn't say it's actually a breaking of the rules as such. But if we talk about ideal world and very high sportsmanship level, I'd say Michael should have led them by on the main straight. End of story. None of this would have happened. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. That was the digest of round 4 of Scorpio Super Formula series. Uh, it was sort of an experimental format from me. I'm trying to sort of blend together real life experience and the sim racing. As I said before, and as most of you know, what I'm trying to create here is the championship from which we can actually put a driver into the real car. I need support from everyone who's watching. We are actually creating a new fantastically looking website for Scorpio eSports. I am constantly talking to John, who is the owner of Scorpio Motorsport. He he's up to date with what's going on with our championship. Uh, and in the end, what I want to say is that this championship is probably the most competitive private championship ever on Gran Turismo 7. And I stand by my words. All of these drivers are high ranked A plus drivers. Some of them are S ranked drivers like Lester. And Lester lost a lap in this race. So it just shows how high the level of drivers is in this series. I personally don't care too much where I finish because it's more of uh, I see myself more as a championship manager and driver manager rather than a driver now. I'm just driving to enjoy. And, and again, the fact that I can drive to enjoy in such a high ranked lobby, well, it makes me happy. Everything that we are doing here makes me happy. Um, Thank you very much, everyone who's taking part. Thank you very much to Scorpion, to Grove, and to James, who are helping me massively with this series. And thank you very much for watching. We really need help from you with the like and subscribe button, so don't forget to hit those. Write a comment. Give me some more ideas of what to digest next time. What do you want to know about the real life racing? I will read all the comments and I will gladly do more reviews. Thank you very much. Goodbye.